Austin Tech Connect is the official podcast of the Austin Technology Council. Founded in 1992, ATC exists to help unite the local technology ecosystem and to encourage the spread of community, collaboration, and conversations in Central Texas. This podcast is sponsored by SailPoint. They are a leading provider of identity security for the modern enterprise, empowering organizations worldwide to put identity security at the core of their business. With a foundation of artificial intelligence and machine learning, SailPoint Identity Security delivers the right access to the right identities and resources at the right time. Now, here is this week's episode.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Austin Tech Connect. This is the official podcast of the Austin Technology Council. My name is Tom Singer, and I've been with the Austin Technology Council now for a year and a half. Oh my gosh, it has been an interesting journey, but you know what? We have turned the corner on this new direction. We have gotten through phase one of our 3-year plan, and really exciting things are coming ahead, and this podcast is all part of it. Every single week, we try to bring to this show interesting interviews about things that are going on in tech in the Central Texas area and why it matters to all of you, and give you the chance to meet really cool people. And today, we're going to reach outside of our typical greater Austin area because we're no longer bound in technology by just the borders. We're no longer bound by where you can get on I-35. You know, sometimes you could drive Highway 79, find some really interesting tech out in the world of Bryan College Station. And coming up in April, there is a tech conference called Midway to the Future that is taking place in that area, highlighting all of the things that are going on with innovation, research, and entrepreneurship in secondary markets, highlighting what's going on around Texas A&M. Now, I know, Austin, we say Texas A&M, you just said that out loud. Hook 'em horns, baby, no way. Hey, we hadn't even played football against them in a decade. That rivalry, not a problem until this fall. However, it's time that Austin helps these other communities in Texas really find their way to thrive. And today's guest is Jeremy Osborne. Hey, Jeremy, welcome to the show.
Howdy. Thanks for having me.
So those of you in Austin may not know Jeremy Osborne, but you know what? He is a really successful young entrepreneur who actually started an oil and gas company that did some pretty cool things, and he had a really nice exit. And you know what? He has decided that he wants to take that he's been fortunate, right? He had a nice exit. He's able to do other things now, but he doesn't want to just go retire to Montana. He actually wants to help other people find opportunities through entrepreneurship. Because he says, you don't need a title, you don't need funding, you don't need elected office to be a person who can impact the economy of the area where you live and help create jobs. And that's exciting. So for this event, the Austin Technology Council is one of the sponsors because we want to make sure that our Austin community isn't just living in a bubble, that we're not an ivory tower. And just down the road in College Station is going to be this great tech event. And I wanted to make sure that everybody knew about it. So Jeremy, what do you think? Welcome to Austin Tech Connect and being featured this week on the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. To your point, I consider myself a citizen of the world, so I hope I don't need a passport to be on this podcast or visit you. But we love Austin. We're really grateful for the support of the Tech Council for this event. We're looking forward to putting something on that maybe has really never happened here before.
Nice. So first of all, let's back up. How did the idea for Midway to the Future, a tech conference in Bryan College Station, how did that come about?
It's interesting. It's kind of a couple of different data points. You know, we were all on lockdown for COVID. And when that finally let up, people started getting together again and having events. And so I actually traveled to a couple of conferences. One of them was last year in Columbia, Missouri. So home of Mizzou, very similar SEC, land grant university college town. They had a great event. They had people from all over the world, about 800 attendees. And I left thinking, you know, we should be doing something like this. There's a lot of great things that are happening in Bryan College Station, and we can showcase the research that's going on at Texas A&M. We can showcase the private companies that are developing kind of what we have to offer. And so while it's an event about all the tertiary markets, this could take place anywhere in the country off the coast, right? We feel like we have a special story to tell, and the proximity to Austin is certainly part of that story.
So the event is going to take place April 16th and 17th, and with an opening reception, I guess, the night of the 15th. So we're doing a couple days there. Tell us about how you've structured the event.
The event's kind of a mix of networking and fun, and then hopefully some really in-depth, substantive panels and keynotes. And so, like you said, we'll have this optional reception on Monday night that'll give everyone a chance to kind of arrive, check in, get to know some of the people you're going to be spending a couple of days with. Following day is really a marathon session of some really great panels, a lot of tech topics, a lot of entrepreneurship topics. And then we'll have a nice event in downtown Bryan on Tuesday evening in their sort of historic downtown area. There's a brand new venue there in the Varisco building. It's really cool. It feels like something sort of dropped in from somewhere else. So that'll be an evening of fun for everyone. And then Wednesday morning, we're going to tour the RELLIS campus. And there's a lot of exciting things happening there. You've probably heard a lot about it. And we're going to feature some great panelists who are going to talk about the research that's going on there and the private-public partnerships that are really starting to take shape there, especially in the semiconductor space.
So it's interesting because when we think high-tech hub, I wouldn't say that, Bryan College Station's the first thing that comes to mind. However, I've lived in Austin now for 33 years. And when I moved here, I mean, obviously that was probably the heyday of the big rival between Austin, University of Texas at Austin and Texas A&M. But 30 years ago, I mean, Texas A&M's always been a great university, but it was small. If you look at the number of students it had compared to, this mammoth University of Texas at Austin, it was pretty much a small state school. And now it kind of rivals UT in the number of students and things like that. So there's been amazing growth within A&M. How has that impacted the Bryan College Station area in general?
Well, it certainly has impacted. It probably depends on who you ask as to what kind of response you would get. But yeah, I mean, historically, UT was the flagship. It was larger. It was in an urban area that's also the state capital. A&M, like I said, was the land grant college, right? It focused on agricultural issues. Its students generally came from the more rural areas of the state. You've had a couple of different things happen to really change the university and the demographics of the community. First is just generally the population of Texas as well. We've doubled in 30 years. And with the top 10% rule, when the state population grows, the state universities, their student bodies are going to grow. And so that has certainly happened. And I think there's been a change in perception of the university. It has made it its mission to educate the students of Texas, especially first generation college students. So you've seen an increase in diversity. You've seen an increase in the different geographic regions where they're pulling students from. And so now you have a university that is actually the single largest driver of research dollars in the state, over $1 billion in 2022.
Wow.
You have the largest university by student body in the country. You have 75,000 students here and growing. You have 25,000.
Wait a second. I don't think when I said it rivals UT in the student population, I didn't realize it was the largest university in the country by students. Is that a combination of grads and undergrads? I'm sort of blown away. I'm sure my audience is like, what?
It's kind of been a kind of a sleeper effect that's happened. But yeah, even when I graduated 20 years ago, we were knocking on 50-something thousand probably at the flagship campus. And today, between the undergrads, the grads, you have the medical school here now in that complex. You have the students in Galveston. You have the law school in Fort Worth. Those are all considered part of the flagship, and so you end up with north of 75,000 students.
Wow.
and still a push continuing. I think it will continue to grow. There is a mandate to make the engineering college alone 25,000 students by 2025, and they're likely to overshoot that next year.
Wow, that's like I said, that's a stat I wasn't prepared for in this interview. I'm at a loss for words, and everybody who knows me knows that doesn't happen very often. So
yeah,
as
if you haven't been here in a while, you probably wouldn't recognize the place if you visited, if you hadn't been here in 10 or 20 years.
The last time I was there was for a football game about 18 years ago. So yeah, I have not been there in that time of growth. So I look forward to coming out on the 16th of April for that event. So with all of this growth, obviously, anytime you have a university town, I mean, I talk a lot around Austin and around the country about the history of Austin's growth and about the history of technology in Austin, because if we don't know where we came from, we can't relish in the now and move forward. And what I say about the Austin Technology Council when it comes to the Austin tech community is we need to celebrate the past and educate people about the past, but we need to be present in the now, and then we need to be planning for the future. So as we look at sort of the growth, the past of what's come, I know that there has been, anytime you have a growing university with really smart kids, some of them end up starting businesses while they're in college. Some of them then move those businesses to an Austin or the Silicon Valley or whatever when they graduate, but some people stay. So what's really happened with the face of the business community? And when I say that, we're taking a lean towards the tech community. What's happened over the past 20 years with that? I mean, we don't think about having companies, but I know from prepping for this interview, you have a lot of little growing tech companies going on.
We do. There's a burgeoning little tech scene here. And you're right, that seems to be something that sort of crops up around these growing universities as an entrepreneurial ecosystem. And this event is part of helping to foster and augment that already natural processes taking place in the community. But 20 years ago when I graduated, I left. I had plans to go to law school and I knew where I was going. And so I hit the road running. But even then, if I had wanted to stay, that would have been a very hard sell to me personally and to my parents and to my friends, because there just wasn't a lot of opportunity to one, start your own business, or to two, really pursue a successful professional career in this community. And that's certainly what has changed in the past 20 years. You have people who either stay or they return fairly quickly in their career. And there are opportunities for them now that just didn't exist 20 years ago.
What is the population of the Bryan College Station area?
You're looking at close to, if you bring in the entire county and sort of the surrounding smaller incorporated communities, about 300,000 people. So it's not a sleepy little college town anymore by any means.
No, I mean, I don't know the exact numbers, but I know when I moved to Austin in 91, Austin was about 700,000 people in that greater area. But if you go back 20 years before the 90s, if you go back to the 70s, that was the size of Austin in probably 1971 or something like that. So really, that just puts you, 45 years, sort of behind in that growth. I mean, what kind of growth do you see coming to the area?
You're right. That's kind of how we describe it a lot internally. We're Austin 30 or 40 years ago. And we don't know that we will be Austin in 40 years, but we certainly know the growth is going to come. We're trying to prepare for it. You're going to see this community double in population by 2050. And so we know that's coming. You're going to see a lot of infrastructure development. We're going to have the I-14 corridor kind of dip down and come right through Bryan. And so you're going to have connectivity from Midland all the way to Savannah, Georgia. And we're going to be on that interstate system for the first time. So that'll be huge when that happens. And that's a 10, 15, 20-year project. It's planned, the money will be appropriated, and that will happen. And then you have other sort of moonshots like Texas Central Rail. So let's just say the high-speed rail could really get off the ground and start construction. You'll see that go from Houston to Dallas with a stop right here in the Brazos Valley. And that would get you to a very pleasant 90 minutes from here to Dallas. And that's something that, if you ever traverse 35, that's not really possible right now from Central Texas. But we know that will also sort of change the demographics. You could potentially become a bedroom community for a lot of these larger metros in the state. So we have a lot of good leaders who are looking forward, who are planning for that growth. And so you're going to see roads constructed, loops constructed. We're seeing a lot of high-rise development around Northgate and the university, sort of increased density. That's something that just inevitably has to happen in a community. And we've been very suburban for a long time. And so you're kind of going to see us grow up in the next 20, 30 years.
Well, it's really interesting. And I mean, we're getting off track from the conference here, but it is fascinating because if you double in size and get to a town of 700,000 people, I mean, cities of that side have major airports and have all kinds of other things that you don't typically think of in a small rural community. So there's a lot of growth coming. And I think as people are looking for more affordable options, right? I mean, I talk a lot about the 10 pillars of success that weren't a plan. We didn't set out to have the 10 pillars, but there were 10 things that led Austin to having the I call it the Austin miracle. And, one of those was affordability. Now, we're going to continue to grow and great things are going to happen, but the affordability pillar is taken out. That's not supporting our roof anymore. Right. But people are looking all over the country for where can I go that's cool, that's fun, that's hip, that's young, and has enough density that there's things to do and support. You're not more than a decade away from, possibly being a destination place where people can afford, to buy a house at a reasonable rate and do things like that. That makes this game more interesting, right?
That's right. It's certainly less affordable than it was 10 or 12 years ago when I moved back. But at the same time, there is some housing available. It is not at the price of Austin or sort of highly desired places for young professionals, young families. And so this will be a place where people target to move, to restart their careers, to start businesses. And you'll see a lot of Aggies who have an affinity for the area. I think everyone kind of loves the town where they went to college. And as it becomes a place where they could not just look back and think about their time as a college student, but look forward and think about their time as entrepreneurs and professionals, I think you're going to see that flywheel just start to spin faster. And so to kind of bring it back to the conference, the affordability, the availability of space, the brain power coming out of the university, I think you're going to see a lot of companies that have strong presences in Austin, kind of like you said, look down that 79 corridor and think, maybe there's a play here. Maybe we can sort of link these communities together and create a larger ecosystem that benefits everyone across Central Texas.
Nice. Well, and you said about the affinity towards your college town. I think everybody in the country has an affinity for my college town because I went to San Diego.
I do too, and I didn't go there.
I went to San Diego State University, so I didn't go to UT. I'm not from Texas.
Okay, well, that too. I mean, who doesn't love San Diego?
Well, I was going to say their nickname is America's finest city, and nobody can argue that one. So
that's a very fair moniker for sure.
But you are right that people do look back, and I can see a lot of options coming there. And this is actually something that I want people who are listening to think about. Because I think sometimes in Austin, we get caught up in the story of Austin. Like I said, I speak all over the country now talking about the history of Austin Tech, and it's an exciting story. I spoke for the mayor's breakfast at South by Southwest just a few days ago before this will release, and I was talking to 350 people from all over the world about how this all came about. And people lined up afterwards and said, God, it's so inspiring. A newspaper from Norway took me down for a beer and interviewed me about what Austin, did and what communities can learn from that. But I think sometimes those of us who are here get caught up in that and we don't look out from our little bubble. So I think this is exciting of what's going on. And it's exciting that it's going on nearby because that just benefits Austin. If people go to Pittsburgh or they go to Nashville or they go to one of these other burgeoning tech areas, that doesn't necessarily positively directly affect us. But the growth that's going to go on in your region, if people are really paying attention, this is, because I think a lot of people listening, this is the first time they've ever heard this, because I pay attention to this stuff and I didn't. I think this is an opportunity for Austin's tech community and the whole state of Texas, because as the Austin Technology Council, we're not just looking at the borders of Austin anymore, right? You and I talked before we got started that there is now this Texas triangle. Texas has 4 of the 11 or 12 largest cities in America. When I moved to Austin, Austin was the 25th largest city in 1991. We're now the 10th largest city. And we used to be this alternative little tech hub from the Valley in New York and Los Angeles and Boston. It was like we were the alternative. Austin is now one of the big boys. And I think that we have to, realize that, that we're not this like alternative tech hub, because now everybody's becoming a tech hub. And if everybody's a tech hub, what is a tech hub? So Austin needs to focus on the fact that we're an innovation center. And if we're an innovation center, it means that the fingers of that go out as far as they can. And it's really easy to invest and touch and have a research arm of your company and to recruit from A&M and to do all this stuff. So this is really important to the Austin tech scene, what you're talking about happening in the Brazos Valley. So let's get back to the conference. Well, one more thing about the Brazos Valley.
Okay, sure.
You guys have an economic development corporation called the Brazos Valley Economic Development Corporation. That's a creative name for it. And you have a brand new executive director running the show. And I think a lot of people here know the name.
Right. Susan Davenport, kind of a rock star in the economic development world, certainly in Texas. I think she was part of a group. You were part of that. My co-host for the conference, Amy Warmke, was certainly part of it. Just that those Opportunity Austin days 20, 30 years ago, where you really started to set the wheels in motion to create what you have there today. And she has been a huge asset to this community. She's been here a little less than a year. And she has the contacts, she has the vision. She's encouraging us to kind of look beyond the immediate time frame and geography and really do more things like this, do more outreach, believe that we can attract more larger enterprise level tech companies. And so we were actually out in Silicon Valley last week meeting with a number of businesses, including Amazon, who has their drone delivery service here. in College Station. We're the only place in the country where they're doing testing at this scale. And it was a great trip. Met a lot of Aggies in tech and invited them all to this conference. So I think great things are about to happen. You kind of see the stars align to get the right people here at the right time together with the same mission and same purpose. And so I'm really happy to be a part of it.
So you mentioned you're co-organizer / co-host of Midway to the Future, and you bring up a name that's really familiar to a lot of people in tech in Austin, especially if they've been around more than 10 years, and that is Amy Wermke. So Amy Wermke is, for those who don't know her, Amy Wermke was the marketing director for Ernst & Young back in the boom days of the 1990s and early 2000s of the Austin explosion of tech. And Ernst & Young had the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year Awards, which was the pinnacle event in Austin. It was a black tie event at the time. You didn't miss it. And I was the marketing director of Brobeck, Flager, and Harrison back in the early 2000s, which was arguably the largest tech law firm in town. And so we did a lot. We sponsored a lot of things together. They put on Entrepreneur of the Year Awards. Brobeck threw the after party, which started at 10 o'clock at night and went to 1 a.m. And people always told me as the marketing director, you can't start a party after another party at 10 o'clock for a bunch of like 40 and 50-year-olds, a lot of people younger as well. But
one time a year you can, yeah.
and one time a year you can. And we did it. I didn't invent that party. It was started by one of the partners in the firm. And then for several years, the marketing people before me ran it. But for the 4 years I ran it, we were the first people ever to get a P.F. Chang's to close early, because we were bringing in the entire tech community for this private party across the street from where Amy's event was. But Amy then went on to work with several other jobs. She now works for one of the big tech law firms. And I will tell you, she is an institution in this town at building events that rock. And she knows how to do it.
Yeah. And we can say she works at Daily Piper now. They're a sponsor of the event. Nice. And one of her partners is going to moderate the defense panel on Wednesday for topics related to the RELIS campus. But yeah, I met Amy about 5 years ago in the Entrepreneur of the Year program. I was one of the regional candidates that year, and it was with my company here in College Station called Pegasus. And so it's where we met. We stayed in touch. She's based out of Brenham, really. And we both have a vision for this area and this region. And we think there's a lot of good stuff that's going to happen here. So we're excited about the event.
Nice. So if people are interested in the event, they've listened for 21 minutes and 15 seconds now to this podcast, and they're like, who should attend? Is this for me? Who in Austin should be attending, at least, even if they just went for the day on the 16th? Who should be coming?
Right. I think anyone who has an interest in tech in Texas, whether it's research, innovation, whether it's best practices, there's going to be a topic covered for you in one of the panels. If you're looking to network, if you're sort of a middle market founder looking to scale up, if you are an entrepreneur at more of a startup stage, it's looking to meet potential investors or to, again, learn something about the industry, I think you'd be a great attendee. And it's certainly not just limited to Aggies. I think we'll have a good number of them represented from all over the Texas Triangle. But we've been very purposeful and diligent to stock all the panels with really great speakers, dynamic speakers, talented people, but only about 50% of them have some affiliation with the university, whether they're graduates or whether they're professors in the administrative roles at the university. So you're going to have a wide variety of experiences and views. And so I think really anyone who just kind of wants to see what's going on here or has an interest in those specific areas, definitely come. Stay for a couple of days, come for the day, get a taste of everything, and get to meet some of the local movers and shakers here as well. We'll have a good representative sample of entrepreneurs and people in the tech space here in the local community.
Nice. And how can we get the word out in Austin? I mean, obviously, like you said, this isn't just for Aggies. We need to take that. We need to take the Aggie stigma away. This is a new world. We don't believe in competition here at the Austin Technology Council. We believe in collaboration. My belief is community, collaboration, and conversations can solve all problems. And so, how can we get the word out? If somebody's listening to this going, yeah, I should probably tell somebody about this. Where do they find more information? Who can they contact, et cetera?
Sure. We'll certainly share this podcast with your friends and colleagues. You can visit our website at M2, the numeral 2, TF, m2tfsummit.com. And then we're also on all the social handles at that M2TF Summit handle. LinkedIn seems to be the most popular, of course, very appropriate for this type of event, but we're posting speakers, sponsors, details about the event. And you can reach out to me. Maybe we can drop my contact info in the show notes
or go ahead and say it, because people might.
Sure. My email for the event's Jeremy, Jeremy, at m2tfsummit.com, or otherwise on social media at Jeremy L. Osborne. You'll be very bored with most of the content, but you can reach out to me and I'll get you in touch with someone who can get you registered for the conference.
Well, Jeremy, the Austin Technology Council was really excited, to be asked to help promote this and to be a sponsor of the event, because like I said, we're not just Austin. We're, the tagline, if you will, of the University of Texas is what starts here changes the world. And I am trying to get everyone, I mean, we can't steal it. It's a trademarked thing, but I'm trying to get everyone in Austin to live by that motto, regardless of if their company started out of UT or not. Because here in Austin, what happens here, what starts here does change the world. But here doesn't end at the borders. Like I said, we need to be working within that entire Texas triangle. We need to be pulling our whole state together to work together instead of competing, so that, Texas can continue to thrive, because I don't think the population of Texas is going to shrink. We've doubled over the last 30 years. I think it's going to keep going. And that means that we all have to work together to be able to provide the type of infrastructure, the type of support for tech companies to be able to grow and thrive, and thus lure more of them here.
Right. We're in complete alignment about that. We're really excited in this community to kind of be a rising part of the emerging mega region here in Texas. And you're right. You can't have 6% of the entire country's population within 3 hours without all of them pulling together and feeling like they're all part of one group, one team.
Nice. Well, Jeremy, this has been a delightful conversation. I end all these interviews with a couple of questions. The first one is, I mentioned it a minute ago, my personal motto is community, collaboration, and conversations can solve all problems. Which of those 3 words resonates the most with you, and why?
That's a great question. I think if you'd asked me years ago, I probably would have said collaboration, team building would be the way to solve problems. I think we've kind of reached a place in this country where we're just not talking to one another. We're all in our own silos. So I think I would say a conversation is right now the most important missing piece in Americans working together.
Nice. Well, I agree. So last question. I didn't set you up for this because I never tell people it's coming. And most people, they don't listen to the end of the show, so they don't know. Do you come to Austin occasionally?
I do.
All right. So if you were to bring a friend to Austin who'd never been to Austin, what's the coolest place, restaurant or venue or attraction?
Ooh.
Where would you take them so they'd get the vibe of why Austin is
the vibe of Austin? My answer is a little dated because we actually have one here now. But 5 or 10 years ago, I still think South Congress is the coolest spot in town. But when Hopdoddy's opened, that was just like the coolest thing. We would drive over just for a cheeseburger. That just seemed really cool. We actually have one in College Station.
Well, it's a national chain now. It's like Torchy's, right? You go to the Bay Area.
Right. Torchy's would have been it maybe 15 years ago, and we have Torchy's now. So there's been so many things that come out of Austin. Like you said, they don't stay there. They change the world. So that's probably somewhere along South Congress would be my answer.
Nice.
Right
I haven't been to Hopdoddy in a long time. Now you got me hungry, Jeremy. I will flip that around and say that the chain that came out hasn't gone huge, but the chain that came out of College Station that I love, I'm a big Freebird's burrito guy.
Freebirds. Yeah. It's a favorite here for sure. Yeah. Kind of reminds me of my college days.
There you go. Hey, this has been a great conversation. I'm really excited about your conference. I hope it's a huge success, and I hope next year when it grows, we can come back and talk about it again.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It was a great conversation.
Jeremy Osborne, thank you for being here. And thank you to everyone who tuned in and listened. You know what? If it wasn't for you listening, why would we do the show? We really appreciate the support that has come out of the community, and especially in the last few months, to help the Austin Technology Council. We're trying to rebuild, refocus, and look to what is in the future. But you know what? We can't do that without you and your company. And I'll tell you, we need to find who are the civic-minded entrepreneurs who want to look for the future, because society is changing and people don't naturally think, oh, it's my turn to give back. but they're out there. We just got to pick up those rocks and find those people. So if you know who wants to change the world, starting right here in Austin, and be part of something that's growing and changing, we need them involved with the Austin Technology Council. So please make sure that your company is supporting ATC and go join the Austin Technology Council.
Thanks for listening to the Austin Tech Connect podcast. Make sure your company is a member of the Austin Technology Council and add your voice to the future of our tech ecosystem in Central Texas.